The scream tore from Genevieve Morrison's throat as flames consumed the doorway of the mountain cabin, trapping her inside with walls of fire closing in from every direction. Smoke choked her lungs as she pressed herself against the far wall, the heat singeing her skin through her cotton dress. She had come to this remote Colorado cabin in the summer of 1882 to escape the whispers back in Manassas, never imagining that the oil lamp she had knocked over in her panic would become her executioner. The window across the room offered her only hope, but the flames danced between her and freedom like demons mocking her final moments. She stumbled forward, coughing violently as the smoke thickened. Her eyes streamed with tears that had nothing to do with grief and everything to do with survival. The wedding dress hanging in the corner, the one she was supposed to wear in 3 days to marry Thomas Whitfield, caught fire and went up like kindling. She had fled here to think, to escape the suffocating expectations of a marriage she did not want, only to face a far more literal suffocation. Through the roar of the flames, she heard something else. Hoofbeats, thunder against the mountain soil, a voice shouting her name, though she could not fathom how anyone knew she was here. She had told no one, not even her sister. The window exploded inward in a shower of glass and splintered wood. A man came through head first, his body tucked and rolling across the floor with practiced precision. He was on his feet in an instant, his dark eyes finding hers through the smoke. Without a word, he stripped off his leather duster and wrapped it around her, lifting her into his arms as though she weighed nothing at all. "Hold on to me," he commanded, his voice rough as gravel but steady as stone. Genevieve clutched his shirt, her fingers digging into the fabric as he charged back toward the window. The flames reached for them with hungry fingers, but he was faster. He dove through the opening, twisting his body to take the impact as they hit the ground outside. They rolled down a short embankment, coming to rest in the cool grass beside a creek that bubbled its indifference to human drama. She gasped for air, her lungs burning as she coughed up smoke. Her rescuer knelt beside her, his hand on her back, supporting her through the spasms. When she finally caught her breath and looked up at him, recognition slammed into her with the force of a physical blow. "Ryder Hayes," she whispered. He nodded once, his jaw tight. "You remember." How could she forget? Ryder Hayes, the wild son of a ranch hand, the boy who had left Manassas 5 years ago under a cloud of accusations. Cattle rustling, they had said, though nothing was ever proven. He had been 20 years old then, all raw edges and barely contained fury. Now he was 25, and the years had carved him into something harder, more dangerous, and impossibly more handsome. "I thought you were in Wyoming," she said, her voice hoarse. Got back yesterday." He stood, offering her his hand. "Heard you were up here." "Your sister let it slip to the wrong person." Genevieve took his hand, letting him pull her to her feet. Her legs shook beneath her, whether from the smoke or his proximity she could not say. "You came looking for me. Someone had to." His eyes moved past her to the cabin, now fully engulfed. "That fire was not an accident, Genevieve. Someone barred the door from the outside." The words hit her like ice water. She spun to look at the burning structure, and through the flames, she could see he was right. A thick beam lay across where the door had been, too heavy for her to have moved even if she had reached it. "Thomas," she breathed. "He found out I was here. He was angry when I told him I needed time to think." Ryder's expression darkened. "Thomas Whitfield, the banker's son." "You are marrying him." "Was going to," she corrected, anger replacing fear in her chest. "I do not think I will be doing that anymore." A ghost of something that might have been satisfaction crossed Ryder's face, but it was gone too quickly for her to be sure. He whistled, and a magnificent black horse emerged from the trees, trailing reins. We need to get you back to town. You need a doctor." "I am fine," she protested, though her hands were shaking and her dress was singed in several places. "You are in shock," he said flatly, "and you almost died. Let me help you." There was something in his voice that made her stop arguing. He mounted the horse with fluid grace, then reached down for her. She hesitated only a moment before taking his hand and letting him pull her up behind him. The moment she settled against his back, her arms around his waist, something shifted in the air between them. She felt his breath catch, felt the tension that ran through his powerful frame. "Hold tight," he said, and urged the horse into a steady lope down the mountain trail. The ride to Manasseh took over an hour, and with every mile, Genevieve became more aware of the man in front of her. Ryder Hayes had been trouble 5 years ago, the kind of boy her mother had warned her to stay away from. But he had also been kind to her, in the brief moments when their paths had crossed. Once, he had helped her rescue a litter of kittens from a well. Another time, he had walked her home when a drunk cowhand had gotten too friendly outside the general store. She had been only 17 then, too young to understand the way her heart had fluttered when he smiled at her. Now she was 22, old enough to recognize the feeling for what it was, and terrified by its intensity. "Why did you really come back?" she asked, her lips close to his ear so he could hear her over the wind. He was quiet for so long she thought he would not answer. Then, unfinished business, the rustling charges, among other things. He paused. "I was innocent, Genevieve, but no one wanted to hear it. The sheriff needed someone to blame, and the ranch hand's son was an easy target." "I believed you," she said softly, his shoulders tensed. "Did you?" "I did. I told anyone who would listen, but I was just a girl. No one cared what I thought." "I cared," he said, so quietly she almost missed it. Her arms tightened around him instinctively. "Then, why did you not come back sooner?" "Because I had nothing to offer you then. I was broke, angry, and wanted by the law in 3 counties for crimes I did not commit. What was I supposed to do? Ask you to run away with me and live like outlaws?" The casual way he spoke of her, as though she had been part of his calculations all along, made her heart race. "And now I own a ranch in Wyoming. 2,000 acres, 300 head of cattle, and enough money in the bank to prove I earned it honestly." He turned his head slightly, and she caught his profile against the setting sun. "Now I can offer you something. I am engaged," she said, but the words felt hollow, "to a man who just tried to kill you." She had no answer for that. They rode into Manasseh as the sun dipped behind the San Juan Mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The town was small, barely 300 souls, but it was growing. The railroad was coming through next year, and everyone was betting on prosperity. Thomas Whitfield's father owned the bank, which made Thomas one of the most eligible bachelors in the county. Genevieve's parents had been thrilled by the match. She had been suffocating. Ryder rode straight to Doc Brennan's house, ignoring the stares and whispers that followed them. Small towns had long memories, and Ryder Hayes was not a name spoken kindly here. He helped Genevieve down, his hands lingering on her waist a moment longer than necessary. Doc Brennan took one look at her smoke-stained face and ushered her inside. Ryder followed, despite the doctor's protests. "She needs to be examined," Doc Brennan said firmly. "Alone." "I will be in the waiting room," Ryder said, his eyes on Genevieve. "I am not leaving." Something warm bloomed in her chest at his protectiveness. She nodded, and he stepped out, closing the door behind him. Doc Brennan worked quickly, checking her lungs, examining the minor burns on her hands and arms. "You are lucky," he said gruffly. "Another few minutes and you would have been lost." "How did the fire start?" "An accident," she lied, surprising herself. "I knocked over a lamp." The doctor's shrewd eyes told her he did not believe her, but he did not press. And Ryder Hayes happened to be there. He saved my life. Hum. Doc Brennan applied salve to her burns with gentle efficiency. That boy got a raw deal 5 years ago. I never believed he was a thief. Too much pride in him for that. But pride does not stand up well against a sheriff with political ambitions and a town ready to believe the worst. He says he is back to settle things. Then there will be trouble, the doctor said with certainty. Thomas Whitfield will not take kindly to Ryder's return, especially if he gets wind of what happened today. Thomas tried to kill me, Genevieve said, the words feeling surreal even as she spoke them. Doc Brennan's hand stilled. That is a serious accusation. The cabin door was barred from the outside. Ryder saw it. I could not have done that myself. The doctor's expression turned grim. Then you need to tell the sheriff. Sheriff Morrison is my uncle, but he and Thomas's father are friends. Will he even believe me? He will have to investigate at least, and you have Ryder as a witness. Doc Brennan finished bandaging her hands. But be careful, Genevieve. The Whitfields are powerful. If Thomas did this, he will not confess easily. When she emerged from the examination room, she found Ryder standing by the window, his body coiled with tension. He turned at the sound of her footsteps and relief flashed across his face. You are all right, thanks to you. She moved to stand beside him. Ryder, I need to report what happened to my uncle. I will go with you. He might arrest you. There is still a warrant. Then let him. Ryder's jaw set in a stubborn line she was beginning to recognize. I am not letting you face this alone. Her throat tightened with emotion. Why are you doing this? You do not owe me anything. He turned to face her fully, and the intensity in his dark eyes made her breath catch. 5 years ago, when everyone in this town turned their backs on me, you were the only one who stood up and said you believed me. Do you know what that meant to an angry kid who thought the whole world was against him? She shook her head, unable to speak. It meant everything, he said simply. I left here with nothing but my horse and the memory of a girl with green eyes who saw something worth believing in. I built my ranch thinking about that moment. About you. So no, Genevieve, you do not owe me anything. I have owed you for 5 years. Before she could respond, the door burst open and Thomas Whitfield stormed in, his face flushed with anger. He was a handsome man by conventional standards, with neat blonde hair and expensive clothes, but right now his features were twisted with something ugly. There you are, he snapped at Genevieve. I have been searching everywhere. Your mother is worried sick. What are you doing with this criminal? Ryder moved smoothly between them, his body a wall of protection. Back off, Whitfield. I will do no such thing. Genevieve is my fiancée. Whatever happened, she is coming with me now. I am not going anywhere with you, Genevieve said, stepping around Ryder. Her voice was steady despite the fear coursing through her. You tried to kill me, Thomas. His face went pale, then red. That is insane. I have been in town all day. Ask anyone. Someone barred that cabin door from the outside while I was trapped inside, she said. If you did not do it yourself, you hired someone to do it. Lies, Thomas hissed. This is his doing. He pointed at Ryder. He has poisoned your mind against me. Everyone knows Hayes is a liar and a thief. I was cleared of those charges in Wyoming, Ryder said coldly. I have the documents to prove it. The real rustlers were caught 6 months after I left. They confessed. The sheriff here just never bothered to tell anyone. Thomas's eyes narrowed. That does not change what you are, trash. You have no right to her. And you do. After you tried to burn her alive, Thomas lunged at Ryder, but the cowboy was ready. He sidestepped easily, catching Thomas's arm and twisting it behind his back in one fluid motion. Thomas cried out, more in outrage than pain. I could break this, Ryder said conversationally. but I am trying to stay out of trouble. So I am going to let you go, and you are going to walk out of here like a civilized human being. Understood? You will regret this, Thomas spat. My father will destroy you, both of you. Ryder released him with a slight shove toward the door. Get out. Thomas straightened his jacket, his face a mask of barely contained fury. He looked at Genevieve, and for a moment she saw something frightening in his eyes. You are making a mistake. I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me. By running to him. You gave me a cage, Genevieve said quietly. Not a life. He left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. In the silence that followed, Genevieve realized she was shaking. Ryder's hand found hers, warm and solid. We need to see your uncle now, he said gently. Before Thomas can spread his version of events. She nodded, grateful for his steadiness when her own world felt like it was crumbling. They walked together through the darkening streets of Manasseh, and Genevieve felt the weight of every stare, every whisper. By morning, the whole town would know that she had been with Ryder Hayes, that her engagement to Thomas Whitfield was over. Her reputation would be in tatters. Somehow, she could not bring herself to care. Sheriff Morrison's office was lit from within, a beacon in the growing dark. Her uncle looked up from his desk as they entered, his weathered face registering surprise, then concern. Genevieve, what happened to you? His eyes moved to Ryder and hardened. Hayes, I heard you were back. Uncle Robert, I need to file a report, Genevieve said quickly, before he could say anything about Ryder. Someone tried to kill me today. That got his attention. He listened as she recounted the events at the cabin, how the door had been barred from outside, how Ryder had saved her. She watched her uncle's face carefully, trying to read his reaction. Sheriff Robert Morrison was a fair man, but he was also practical. Going after Thomas Whitfield would mean going after one of the most powerful families in the county. That is a serious charge, he said finally. You are certain the door was barred? I saw it myself, Ryder confirmed. Heavy beam, deliberate placement. Someone wanted her dead. And you think it was Thomas Whitfield? The sheriff's tone was carefully neutral. He is the only person with a motive, Genevieve said. I told him yesterday that I was having doubts about the wedding. He became angry, said I was making a fool of him, that I would regret embarrassing him. Sheriff Morrison leaned back in his chair, his fingers drumming on the desk. Thomas claims he was in town all day. I will need to verify his whereabouts. If he hired someone, that will be harder to prove. So you will investigate, hope sparked in Genevieve's chest. I will look into it, her uncle promised. But Genevieve, you need to understand what you are doing. Even if Thomas is guilty, proving it will be difficult. His father will hire the best lawyers. It could drag on for months, and the whole time your name will be dragged through the mud. My name or my life, Genevieve said flatly. I know which I would rather keep. A slight smile touched her uncle's lips. You always were the stubborn one, all right. I will start asking questions tomorrow. In the meantime, you should stay with your parents, and Hayes. He fixed Ryder with a stern look. I looked into those rustling charges after you left. Found out you were innocent about a year later. I should have made more noise about it, should have cleared your name properly. I am sorry for that. Ryder nodded slowly, something easing in his posture. I appreciate that, Sheriff. Does not mean I am happy about you sniffing around my niece, Morrison added. But I suppose that is between you and her. Just keep your nose clean while you are in my town. Yes, sir. Outside, the stars were beginning to emerge in the vast Colorado sky. Genevieve stood on the boardwalk, suddenly uncertain. Her parents' house was on the other side of town, past the church and the general store, past the windows where people would see her with Ryder and draw their conclusions. I will walk you home, Ryder said, reading her hesitation. People will talk. Let them. He offered his arm. I did not spend 5 years building a life just to care what small-minded people think. She took his arm, feeling the solid strength of him beside her. They walked in comfortable silence for a while, the only sounds the distant piano music from the saloon and the chirping of crickets in the grass. "What is Wyoming like?" she asked, wanting to know more about the life he had built. "Big," he said, and she heard the smile in his voice. "Open in a way that makes you feel like you can breathe. My ranch is in the valley between two mountain ranges. In the spring, wildflowers cover the meadows for miles. The cattle are fat and healthy, and I have good men working for me. It is everything I never knew I wanted. It sounds beautiful." "It is," he paused. "It is also lonely." Her heart skipped. "You never married." "Never found anyone I wanted to marry, only ever wanted one woman, and she was promised to someone else." He looked at her then, his eyes reflecting the lamplight from a nearby window. "Guess I should have come back sooner and told her how I felt." Genevieve stopped walking, forcing him to turn and face her. "Ryder Hayes, are you saying what I think you are saying?" "I am saying that I have been in love with you since I was 20 years old, and you defended me in front of the entire town. I am saying that I built a ranch, so I would have something to offer you. I am saying that when I heard you were engaged, I rode for 3 days straight to get here, thinking I was too late." His hand came up to cup her cheek, his touch gentle despite the calluses. "I am saying that almost losing you today made me realize I cannot keep quiet anymore. I do not care if it is too soon, or if it is not proper, or if Thomas Whitfield and his father try to run me out of town again. I love you, Genevieve Morrison, and I think I always will." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but they were not tears of sadness. "I have been half in love with you since I was 17, she whispered. "But you left, and I thought I would never see you again. So I said yes when Thomas proposed because everyone said it was a good match, and I thought maybe I could learn to be happy. But I never stopped thinking about you. Never stopped wondering where you were, if you were all right, if you ever thought about me. Every day," he said roughly. "Every single day." She rose on her toes and kissed him, pouring 5 years of longing into that single moment. He responded instantly, his arms coming around her to pull her close. The kiss was everything she had dreamed it might be, sweet and desperate and perfect. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she saw her own wonder reflected in his eyes. "This is going to be complicated," she said, "practical even in the midst of euphoria. I do not care. Thomas will make trouble. Let him try. My parents will have opinions. I will win them over." He kissed her forehead, then her nose, then her lips again, soft and sweet. "I did not come all this way to give up on you now, Genevieve. Whatever happens, we will face it together." A door opened nearby, spilling light onto the street. Mrs. Henderson, the grocer's wife, stood in the doorway, her eyes wide with shock at the sight of them embracing. Genevieve waited for the shame, the embarrassment that should have come. Instead, she felt only a fierce joy. "Good evening, Mrs. Henderson," she called out cheerfully. The woman sputtered something incoherent and retreated inside, no doubt already planning how to spread the news. Ryder laughed, the sound rich and free. "You are going to be the talk of the town," he warned. "I know." She grinned up at him. "I find I do not mind at all." They continued to her parents' house, and with each step Genevieve felt lighter. The suffocating weight of her engagement, of trying to be someone she was not, lifted like fog burning away in sunlight. When they reached her front gate, she turned to face Ryder. "Thank you," she said, "for saving my life, for coming back, for everything." "Thank me by having dinner with me tomorrow night," he said. "Let me court you properly, the way I should have 5 years ago. I would like that very much." He kissed her once more, tender and lingering, before reluctantly releasing her. "Get some rest." "Tomorrow," Things are going to get interesting." She watched him walk away, his figure swallowed by the darkness. Then she turned and went inside to face her parents. As predicted, her mother nearly fainted when Genevieve explained what had happened at the cabin. Her father, a quiet man who worked at the lumber mill, simply pulled her into a fierce hug and did not let go for a long time. "Thomas Whitfield did this?" her mother asked, her voice shaking. "But he is such a nice young man. His family is so respectable." "Respectable people can do terrible things," her father said grimly. "If he tried to hurt our daughter, he will answer for it." "And Ryder Hayes," her mother pressed. "Genevieve, everyone is going to say terrible things. Your reputation will be ruined." "My reputation will recover," Genevieve said firmly. "Or it will not, and I will survive that too. But I am not going to pretend to mourn a marriage that would have made me miserable. Ryder saved my life, Mama, and he is a good man, whether this town wants to admit it or not." Her mother looked like she wanted to argue, but something in Genevieve's expression must have convinced her to hold her tongue. Instead, she fussed over her daughter's burns, made her tea, and sent her to bed with strict instructions to rest. But Genevieve could not sleep. She lay in her childhood bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the day's events. The terror of the fire, the moment Ryder crashed through the window, the feeling of his arms around her. His confession of love. Her own heart, finally free to feel what it had been holding back for so long. Somewhere across town, she knew he was thinking of her too. The next morning brought exactly the storm she had anticipated. By the time Genevieve came down for breakfast, 3 of her mother's friends had already stopped by to offer condolences about her broken engagement and thinly veiled judgments about being seen with Ryder Hayes. The story had spread through Manasseh like wildfire, growing more scandalous with each retelling. Her uncle arrived mid-morning with news. "I spoke to a dozen witnesses," he said, accepting the coffee her mother offered. "Thomas Whitfield was at the bank all morning, but he left around noon and was not seen again until early evening. Plenty of time to ride up to that cabin." "But can you prove it?" Genevieve asked. "Not yet. However, I also spoke to a ranch hand named Jimmy Carson. He quit working for the Whitfield Ranch 2 days ago. Says he overheard Thomas talking with another hand, Pete Sullivan, about someone being at a cabin who needed to be taught a lesson. He did not think much of it at the time, but after hearing about the fire, he thought it might be important." Hope surged in Genevieve's chest. "Will he testify?" "He is scared. The Whitfields can make his life difficult, but I am working on him." Sheriff Morrison set down his cup. "In the meantime, I am bringing Thomas in for questioning. His father is already threatening to have me removed from office, but I do not care. No one tries to murder my niece and gets away with it." After her uncle left, Genevieve found herself pacing restlessly. She wanted to see Ryder, but propriety demanded she wait for him to call on her. The morning dragged on endlessly. Finally, just after noon, he arrived. He wore clean clothes and his hair was neatly combed, and he carried a bouquet of wildflowers that made her heart melt. Her mother answered the door and stood for a long moment, clearly torn between her daughter's happiness and her concern for propriety. "I would like to call on Genevieve, Mrs. Morrison," Ryder said politely, "if you will allow it." "There will be a chaperone," her mother said finally. "And you will conduct yourself as a gentleman." "Yes, madam. I would not dream of anything else." Her mother showed him into the parlor where Genevieve waited. The moment their eyes met, everything else faded away. He crossed the room and took her hands, his thumb brushing over the bandages Doc Brennan had applied. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Better now that you are here." They sat together on the sofa, careful to maintain a respectable distance with her mother watching from the doorway. but their hands remained linked, and Genevieve felt the connection between them like a physical thing, warm and real. "I spoke to the land office this morning," Ryder said. "The charges against me were officially dropped. My name is clear. That must be a relief." "It is. Though I do not think it will make much difference to most people here. Some minds are already made up." He squeezed her hand. "But I do not care about them. I care about you and about doing this right. Genevieve, I know we need time. I know your engagement just ended and everything is complicated. But I want you to know my intentions are serious. I am not here for a brief courtship before I go back to Wyoming. I am here to build a life with you if you will have me." "I will have you," she said softly. "But Ryder, what about your ranch? You cannot just abandon it." "I am not abandoning it. I have a foreman I trust completely. He can run things for a while, and eventually, if you agree, I hope you will come back with me. I want to show you Wyoming, show you the home I built, see if it is somewhere you could be happy." "I think I could be happy anywhere with you," she admitted. "But yes, I would like to see it." They spent the afternoon talking, making up for 5 years of separation. He told her about his struggles in Wyoming, the lean first year when he nearly lost everything, the slow building of success. She told him about her quiet life in Manassas, the pressure to marry well, her growing sense of being trapped. "I felt like I was drowning," she confessed. "Thomas was not cruel exactly, but he did not see me. He saw a pretty face and a suitable wife. He never asked what I wanted, what I dreamed about. It was like being slowly erased." "What do you dream about?" Ryder asked. She thought about it. "Freedom, open spaces, a life that is mine, not one that has been chosen for me. And maybe, foolishly, I dreamed about you. About whether you ever thought of me." "Always," he said again, and the sincerity in his voice made her eyes sting with tears. The peaceful afternoon was shattered when Sheriff Morrison arrived, his face grim. "Thomas Whitfield is dead," he announced without preamble. Genevieve gasped. "What? How?" "Shot himself in his father's study about an hour ago. Left a note." Her uncle pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. "It is a confession. He admits to barring the cabin door, hoping to scare you into coming back to him. Says he never meant for you to die, just wanted you to be afraid enough to realize you needed him. When he heard you were with Ryder, that you were turning him in, he could not face the consequences." Genevieve sank back against the sofa, shock rolling through her. "He killed himself." "I am sorry, honey. I know this is hard." Her uncle's voice was gentle. "But at least now there will be no trial, no more questions. It is over." Except it did not feel over. It felt tragic and wasteful. She had never loved Thomas, but she had not wished him dead. She thought of his family, of the grief they must be feeling, and her heart ached for them despite everything. Ryder's arm came around her shoulders, solid and comforting. "Are you all right?" "I do not know," she said honestly. "I am relieved, I think, but also sad. He was troubled in ways I never understood." "It is all right to feel both things," Ryder said quietly. The days that followed were difficult. Thomas's funeral brought out the entire town, and Genevieve attended despite her mother's protests. She felt she owed him that much at least. His mother would not look at her, and his father's eyes were full of blame. She endured it all with her head high, Ryder a steady presence at her side. The scandal gradually faded as new gossip replaced the old. Genevieve's relationship with Ryder became accepted, if not universally approved. He courted her properly, taking her on chaperoned walks, attending Sunday services with her family, slowly winning over her parents with his quiet respectability and obvious devotion. 6 weeks after the fire, he took her riding up into the mountains. They stopped beside a crystal-clear stream, the same one that ran past the site where the cabin had burned. The ruins were gone now, cleared away, but Genevieve would never forget that day. "I have something I want to ask you," Ryder said, dismounting and helping her down from her horse. "But first, there is something I need to show you." He led her to a flat space overlooking the valley. From here, she could see Manasseh spread out below, looking peaceful and small. He pulled a rolled paper from his saddlebag and spread it out on a fallen log. "I bought this land," he said. "All 160 acres, from here down to the edge of town. I am going to build a house here, Genevieve. A real house with a big kitchen and a porch where you can watch the sunset. There will be room for horses and maybe some cattle, and it will be ours. A place where we can build a life together." She stared at the plans, seeing his vision laid out in neat lines. "Ryder, this is beautiful, but what about Wyoming? I will keep the ranch there. It is doing well, and like I said, I have good people running it. But I realized something these past weeks. Home is not a place. It is wherever you are. If you want to stay in Manasseh near your family, then this is where I want to be too. And if someday you want to see Wyoming, to spend time there, we can do that. We can have both." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You would do that for me. I would do anything for you." He took both her hands in his. "Genevieve Morrison, I love you more than I thought it was possible to love another person. You are brave and kind and strong, and you make me want to be better than I am. Will you marry me? Will you build this life with me?" "Yes," she said through her tears. "Yes, absolutely yes." He pulled a ring from his pocket, a simple gold band set with a small emerald that matched her eyes. It fit perfectly on her finger. Then he kissed her, long and deep, and she felt her whole future unfold in that moment like a flower opening to the sun. They were married 3 months later in the little church in Manasseh, with the whole town in attendance. Genevieve wore a dress her mother had made, simple ivory cotton with lace at the collar. She carried wildflowers, the same kind Ryder had brought her that first day of their courtship. Her father walked her down the aisle with tears in his eyes, and when he placed her hand in Ryder's, he whispered, "Take care of her." "Always," Ryder promised. The vows they spoke were traditional, but when Ryder looked into her eyes and said, "I will," she heard all the things he did not say aloud. "I will protect you. I will cherish you. I will spend every day proving I am worthy of your love." Their first year of marriage was spent living with her parents while Ryder built their house. It rose slowly on the mountainside, crafted with care from timber Genevieve's father helped select. Every evening they would ride up to watch the progress, and Genevieve would imagine the life they would have there. "How many children do you want?" she asked one evening as they sat on the half-built porch, watching the stars emerge. "As many as you will give me," Ryder said, pulling her close. "Sons and daughters both. I want a house full of noise and laughter." "I want that too," she said. "A big family, lots of love. We have plenty of that already," he said, kissing her temple. The house was finished in the spring of 1883, and they moved in just as the wildflowers began to bloom. It was everything Ryder had promised, spacious and bright, with views that stretched for miles. Genevieve planted a garden and bought chickens, and Ryder built a barn for their horses and the small herd of cattle he purchased. Life fell into a comfortable rhythm. Ryder worked the land with the help of 2 hired men, and Genevieve kept the house and tended her garden. They were not wealthy by any means, but they had enough, and more importantly, they had each other. In the fall of that year, Genevieve realized she was pregnant. She told Ryder over dinner, watching his face transform from confusion to wonder to pure joy. "Are you certain?" he asked, his hand going to her still flat stomach. "As certain as I can be. Doc Brennan confirmed it yesterday." He swept her into his arms, spinning her around the kitchen until she was dizzy and laughing. "We are going to have a baby," he said, wonder in his voice. "You and me. A family." "We already are a family," she corrected. "But yes, we are growing." Their son was born in May of 1884, after a long labor that left Genevieve exhausted but triumphant. They named him Robert after her uncle, but called him Bobby. He had Ryder's dark hair and Genevieve's green eyes, and from the moment he entered the world, he had both of them wrapped around his tiny fingers. Watching Ryder with their son filled Genevieve with a love so intense it was almost frightening. He was patient and gentle, rocking Bobby when he cried, talking to him in a soft voice about the ranch and the mountains and all the adventures they would have someday. "You are a natural father," she told him one night as he settled the baby in his cradle. "I just want to be everything mine was not," Ryder said quietly. "I want him to know he is loved always, no matter what." "He will," she promised. "We both will make sure of that." 2 years later, their daughter arrived. They named her Grace, and she was a sunny child from the start, always smiling, always curious. Bobby was fascinated by his little sister, wanting to help with everything. Genevieve often found Ryder on the floor, both children climbing over him while he pretended to be a mountain or a horse, his laughter filling the house. The ranch prospered. Ryder's reputation as an honest, hard-working man spread, and soon people were coming from neighboring towns to buy his cattle. He paid his men fairly and treated them with respect, and in return, they gave him their loyalty. Genevieve's relationship with her family deepened. Her parents adored their grandchildren and visited often, and her Uncle Robert was Bobby's favorite person besides his father. Even the town that had once judged them so harshly came to accept their love story, pointing to them as an example when their own children complained about not finding the right person. "Be patient," the old-timers would say. "Sometimes love comes crashing through a window when you least expect it." In the summer of 1888, Ryder finally took Genevieve to see his ranch in Wyoming. They left the children with her parents and made the journey north, just the two of them. The ranch was even more beautiful than he had described, nestled in a green valley with mountains on all sides. His foreman, a grizzled man named Jake, welcomed them warmly and showed them around. "The boss did well for himself," Jake said to Genevieve with a wink. "Been talking about you for years. We all thought you might be imaginary." "Very real," she assured him, laughing. They spent 2 weeks there, and Genevieve fell in love with Wyoming just as Ryder had promised she would. There was something about the vastness of it, the sense of endless possibility that called to something deep in her soul. "We could move here," Ryder offered, "if you wanted. Or we could split our time between here and Colorado, whatever makes you happy." She thought about it seriously. "I love it here," she said finally, "but Colorado is home. Bobby and Grace need their grandparents, and your men here do not need you hovering over them. Let this be our retreat, the place we come when we need to remember how big the world is. But let Colorado be where we raise our family." "That sounds perfect," he agreed. On their last night in Wyoming, they lay together under the stars, wrapped in blankets against the mountain chill. Genevieve rested her head on Ryder's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "You ever think about that day?" she asked. "The fire?" "Sometimes," he admitted. "I think about what would have happened if I had arrived 5 minutes later, if I had not heard you were there." "We cannot dwell on what-ifs," she said gently. "We can only be grateful for what is." "I am grateful," he said, his arms tightening around her. "Every single day I wake up grateful that I get to spend my life with you, that we built this beautiful life together, that we survived long enough to find each other." She tilted her head up to kiss him, slow and sweet. "I love you, Ryder Hayes. I love you too, Genevieve Hayes, forever." They returned to Colorado with renewed appreciation for the life they had built. The years continued to pass in a happy blur. Bobby grew tall and strong, with his father's love of horses and his mother's quick mind. Grace turned out to have a talent for music, and Ryder bought her a piano that she played for hours each day. In 1890, they welcomed another son, Michael, and 2 years after that, their youngest daughter, Sarah. The house on the mountain was full of noise and laughter, just as Ryder had wanted. There were scraped knees and childhood illnesses, arguments and reconciliations, triumphs and disappointments. But through it all, Ryder and Genevieve remained each other's constant. Their love the foundation on which their family was built. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Ryder surprised her with a trip back to the site where the cabin had burned. A new structure stood there now, not a cabin but a small chapel. He had built it himself over the past year, working in secret with the help of her father and uncle. "I wanted to reclaim this place," he explained as they stood inside the simple wooden building. "Take somewhere that almost ended your life and turn it into something beautiful. Somewhere our children can come to be married someday. Somewhere we can celebrate all the good things that came from that terrible day." Genevieve could not speak through her tears. She simply wrapped her arms around him and held on tight, overwhelmed by the depth of his love and thoughtfulness. They dedicated the chapel on a sunny Sunday in September, with their family and half the town in attendance. Pastor Williams blessed the building, and then Ryder and Genevieve renewed their vows, speaking the same words they had 10 years before, but with a decade of life and love giving them deeper meaning. The years continued their steady march. The children grew and began to make their own way in the world. Bobby took over more of the ranch work, partnering with his father in running the operation. Grace won a music scholarship to a conservatory in Denver, though she came home every summer to play piano in the little chapel her father had built. Michael decided to study law, wanting to help people the way his great-uncle Robert had. And Sarah, the baby, announced at 14 that she wanted to be a doctor, much to everyone's surprise and pride. Ryder's hair started to show silver at the temples, and laugh lines deepened around Genevieve's eyes. But when they looked at each other, they still saw the young people who had found each other in the flames. The cowboy who crashed through a window and the girl who believed in him when no one else would. In 1898, they celebrated their 16th anniversary by taking all 4 children to Wyoming. The older ones had visited before, but it was Michael and Sarah's first time, and their excitement reminded Ryder and Genevieve of their own first visit all those years ago. They spent a month there, the whole family together in the big ranch house. Bobby learned advanced ranching techniques from Jake, who was getting on in years but still sharp as ever. Grace played the piano Ryder kept in the Wyoming house, filling the valley with music. Michael read every book in the small library, and Sarah spent her days exploring the wilderness with the fearlessness that characterized everything she did. One evening, Genevieve and Ryder took a walk together, following the stream that ran through the property. They had done this 1,000 times in Colorado, but there was something special about doing it here, in the place where Ryder had built his first dream. "I have been thinking," Genevieve said, taking his hand as they walked. "Bobby will take over the Colorado ranch soon. He has the skill and the desire, and Grace will likely stay in Denver after she finishes school. Michael will go wherever his law career takes him. And Sarah will probably end up in some big city hospital, saving lives," Ryder added with a smile. "Exactly. Which means we will have an empty nest before long." She stopped and turned to face him. "What would you think about spending more time here? Maybe 6 months in Colorado, 6 months in Wyoming. We could travel between our children, be there when they need us, but also have this place to ourselves." Ryder's eyes lit up. "Are you saying what I think you are saying? I am saying that you were right all those years ago. Home is not a place. It is wherever we are together." and I think we have earned the right to have two homes, to live the life we want without worrying so much about what we should do." He kissed her, right there beside the stream, with the Wyoming sunset painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. "Have I told you lately that you are the smartest, most wonderful woman I have ever known?" "Not in at least an hour," she teased. They made the plan a reality over the next few years. Bobby married a sweet girl from Manassas named Emma, and they moved into the Colorado house, taking over the ranch operations with Ryder's guidance. Grace found work as a piano teacher in Denver and played regularly at concert halls. Michael passed the bar exam and joined a firm in Colorado Springs that focused on helping miners and laborers who had been wronged by big companies. And Sarah, true to her word, went to medical school, one of only a handful of women in her class. Ryder and Genevieve began splitting their time between Colorado and Wyoming, returning to Colorado for holidays and important family events, but spending the quiet months in the Wyoming Valley. They grew old together in those two places, watching sunrises and sunsets, riding horses across the open land, and talking about everything and nothing. Their grandchildren started arriving in the early 1900s. Bobby and Emma had 3 sons in quick succession, all of them with the Hayes' dark hair and love of horses. Grace had twin girls who showed musical talent from an early age. Michael married late, to a suffragette who ran her own newspaper, and they had 2 daughters who were as fierce and independent as their mother. Sarah never married, dedicating herself to medicine, but she was the beloved aunt who sent exotic gifts from all the places her work took her. Ryder and Genevieve watched their family expand with joy and gratitude. They had built something lasting, something real. Their love had created ripples that extended far beyond themselves, touching the lives of their children and grandchildren, and even the communities where they lived. On a summer evening in 1910, they sat together on the porch of their Wyoming ranch house, watching the stars emerge. They were both 70 now, their bodies slower but their love as strong as ever. Genevieve's head rested on Ryder's shoulder, his arm around her waist, holding her close. "Do you remember the day we met?" she asked, though of course he did. They had told the story 100 times to children and grandchildren. "I remember thinking you were the prettiest girl I had ever seen," Ryder said, "and the bravest, standing up in front of everyone and saying you believed me." "I remember being so angry that no one would listen," she said, "and heartbroken when you left. Best thing I ever did leaving," he said thoughtfully, "because it made me into someone worthy of you, and it brought me back to you in the end." "Crashing through that window," she added with a smile. "Dramatic entrance," he agreed, "but effective." They laughed together, the sound comfortable and familiar. Around them, the Wyoming night was alive with sound, crickets chirping, an owl calling, the distant yip of coyotes. Inside, they could hear their grandson Tommy playing a song Grace had taught him on the piano, life continuing, generation to generation. "I would not change anything," Genevieve said softly. "Even the hard parts, even the scary moments, because all of it brought us here." "Me neither," Ryder agreed. He turned to look at her, and in the starlight she was still the girl with green eyes who had believed in him. "I love you, Genevieve Hayes. Thank you for building this life with me." "I love you too," she said, "always and forever." They sat there together as the stars wheeled overhead, 2 souls who had found each other in fire and forged a love that would outlast them both. Their story would be passed down through their family for generations. The tale of the cowboy who crashed through a window and the woman who believed in him, and the beautiful life they built together from ashes and dreams. In the years that followed, they continued to live fully, embracing each day as the gift it was. They traveled to see Sarah in Boston, where she had become chief of surgery at a major hospital. They attended Michael's cases in court, watching him fight for justice with the same passion that had driven his great-uncle. They danced at Grace's daughter's piano recitals and taught Bobby's sons everything they knew about ranching and horses and living honorably. They also made sure to carve out time for just the two of them. Early morning rides when the world was still quiet. Evenings spent reading by the fire, their chairs pulled close together. Trips back to the little chapel Ryder had built, where they would sit in silence and remember everything they had survived and overcome. On their 40th wedding anniversary in 1922, their entire family gathered in Colorado for a celebration. All 4 children were there, along with their spouses and a growing horde of grandchildren. The house overflowed with people and noise and love. They held the party at the chapel, which had been expanded over the years but still retained its simple beauty. Ryder stood to give a speech, his voice still strong despite his 82 years. "I am not much for fancy words," he began, making everyone laugh. "But I want to say this. Life did not start out easy for me or for your grandmother. We faced hard things, cruel things, but we never faced them alone. The secret to a good life is not avoiding trouble. It is finding someone you want to face the trouble with. And I found that person 40 years ago in a burning cabin when I was lucky enough to crash through a window and find the love of my life on the other side." Genevieve stood beside him, tears streaming down her face. He took her hand, just as he had done 10,000 times before, and kissed it gently. "To my wife," he said, raising his glass, "who made everything worthwhile." The family echoed the toast, glasses clinking, love and laughter filling the air. As Genevieve looked around at the faces of her children and grandchildren, at the life she and Ryder had created, she felt a profound sense of completion. They had taken the worst day of her life and transformed it into the beginning of the best life she could have imagined. That night, lying in bed beside Ryder in the house they had built together, she whispered into the darkness, "Thank you for coming back for me." "Thank you for being worth coming back for," he whispered back. They fell asleep as they always did, wrapped in each other's arms, 2 hearts beating as one. And when morning came, they woke to begin another day of the extraordinary life they had built together. One day at a time, one moment of love at a time, from that fiery beginning to this peaceful present, and whatever beautiful future still awaited them.